I've got Dr. Fatih Birol of the IEA right here with me to talk about the one thing that impacts Indian economy more than anything else, and that's of course crude oil prices. Thank you very much, Dr. Birol, for being with us. And we in India are breathing a sigh of relief because oil prices have cooled off. But is this trend here to stay? Do you believe oil is going to be range bound? Will it continue to be sub 60?
So you are right. When the oil prices reached almost $90 last year, it was a major problem for India, but not only for India, for the global economy.
True.
And I said this is the prices are entering a red zone for the global economy. And many people talk with the producers to convince them to bring the prices down by releasing more oil to the markets. And my thanks to also Minister Pradhan here. Minister Pradhan, myself, many people talk with the producer and they brought more oil to the markets. Now, when we look at this year, I see that a lot of, first of all, US oil is coming to the market. This is very good news for the consumers like India.
Right.
But also we are expecting how the OPEC and Russia will behave, how much oil they are going to cut from their production. But I would expect that the current price level, $60, to go once again to $90, as we have seen last year, will be very difficult if there are no major geopolitical developments.
So other than the geopolitical instability that could shoot up prices, are there any other challenges to crude oil prices? What are some of the other factors that could potentially push up oil prices?
It would have been a very strong oil demand growth, the spectacular oil demand growth, which is difficult to expect this year because global economy is slowing down, including China being one of the drivers of the global economy. And as a result of that, it will be very difficult to expect a huge oil demand growth. Therefore, I wouldn't completely exclude, of course, $90 or above, but with the current supply-demand perspective, I don't expect this will go over the roof as we have seen last year.
Dr. Birol, one of the other questions that I obviously want to ask you is that in India, we import a lot of oil from Iran. For now, we've got a buffer and, a waive off on the sanction of the United States. But there are experts who believe that once that supply goes away, there will be perhaps suppliers, but prices for India will firm up because the Iran supply is going to go off and we get a very sweet deal from them. Is that necessarily something that you share as well?
I think we don't know. In fact, I think many people don't know how the discussions between the importers from Iran and the U.S. administration go. But currently, Iran exports about 1.3 million barrels per day of oil, almost halved compared to before sanctions. So I would expect that if the sanctions continue and tighten, this could have effect for the markets. But if you ask me whether or not this will be a huge game changer, I would be skeptical.
One of the other things that I want to specifically speak to you about, because we in India focus a lot upon this, is renewables. And world over, we are seeing that despite the subsidies that have been given, despite the SOPs that the industry has been offered, the share of renewables hasn't really gone up. I mean, they're contributing to energy requirements as much as they were doing in 1971, according to data from your own agency. Why is that so?
Now, renewables are increasing, but they are not increasing enough to make a huge change in the global energy mix. Oil, gas, coal still constitute more than 80% of the global energy today. In India, I see that, for example, solar is becoming cheaper and cheaper, but we use solar only part of the electricity generation. Energy is used everywhere. The transportation, industry, households, renewables is only, or mainly, I should say, for the electricity generation. So to think that with the renewables we can fix all the problems is extremely optimistic. But renewables will be a part of the solution. But in India, for example, transportation sector is very important.
Right.
I would very much urge India to make more use of railways, for example. In fact, at the end of this month, 30th of January, I am coming to New Delhi to release a major intention report with Minister Piyush Goyal on the railways, how important railways are, and how much it can help India and the others to save oil and to save energy.
You know, speaking about India and the electric vehicle drive that we want to have, and you know, there are these robust claims that are being made that we could turn completely electric vehicle by 2030. Do you believe it's important to have realistic assessments, realistic targets, and achieve them? Because you know, an entire market turning electric vehicle by 2030 perhaps is inconceivable, is it not?
I think electric vehicles are growing across the world. We have, as of today, when we speak, there are 5 million electric cars across
But
the
do
world.
we have the required ecosystem in India?
But
Yeah.
5 million in the world. But if you ask the other cars, the traditional cars, they are 1 billion. 1 billion versus
It's a drop in the ocean.
yeah. So electric vehicles will grow. But if you ask me if 2030 all the cars will be electric in the world, I would say I would be very, very skeptical to believe so.
But do you believe for electric vehicles to be a success in India, it needs the subsidies that the government has to offer? Will industry has to be incentivized to move in the direction, fiscal SOPs perhaps?
It is everywhere in the world. There's a subsidy for electric cars. You can take Norway, you can take France, you can take wherever you want. On average, an electric car in the world enjoys $6,000 subsidy. So whether or not the Indian government is ready to give this subsidy for thousands and millions of people is a question that they have to think carefully.
All right. On that note, thank you very much for speaking to us. Always a pleasure chatting with you. That's Dr. Fatih Birol of the IEA, and he very emphatically states that without subsidies, it will be difficult for electric vehicles to really take off meaningfully in India. That's the practice around the world, and India perhaps will be no exception to that.